Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We will begin in 1 minute.
Good evening. I am Eunice Elliott. I am super excited to share this evening with all of you, and thank you so much for making time to make us part of your evening. And welcome to the first 100 a citizen-led transition for progress in the city of Birmingham. Soon we will hear from Mayor Randall Woodfin, and throughout the evening, you'll hear from more than a dozen community leaders about the status and hope for progress here in Birmingham. Now, tonight is not really about fancy presentations. It's really about community conversations. And we will have some inspiring and uplifting conversations. And we'll also have some tough conversations that we probably needed to have last year. But here we are together this evening, and I'm really happy to see all of you here tonight. Now it's almost time to bring the man of the hour to the podium. But first, we'd like to share a brief video that captures the spirit of the moment. Before we do, I'd like to remind our guests that are viewing this online that a copy of the transition team report is available at birminghamal.gov/strategy. We encourage you to review that report from a second device as you continue to enjoy the program.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Randall L. Woodfin,
I, Randall L. Woodfin,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm. Since 2017, my administration has been built upon one simple promise: putting people first. No one could have known that putting people first would look like this: tearing down what keeps us apart, lifting up what keeps us together. We saw unforeseen challenges in our first term, but we also saw incredible progress. Despite those setbacks, we pushed forward. We emerged stronger with a renewed dedication to servant leadership. In this, our second term serving the citizens of Birmingham, even as new challenges arrive, our commitment to servant leadership remains the same. Stephen R. Covey once said, "The key is not spending time, but investing it." As the days, weeks, and months roll by, we know that as time marches on, so must we. The first 100 days of our second term has reaffirmed our mission of investing in our neighborhoods, establishing guaranteed income, no strings attached, to Birmingham's single mothers, going vertical on new homes and establishing the $1 million affordable housing fund, helping our residents realize their dreams of home ownership. We embraced our city's love of sports to position Birmingham as an athletic destination in our region, opening up our doors to the USFL and welcoming the SWAC Classic to be played at Legion Field. We witnessed the grand opening of the renovated BJCC Legacy Arena. And just in a few months, the eyes of the world will be upon the Magic City for the World Games, as athletes from across the globe join us. A history-making event. 100 days in, and there's so much more to come. There's more time to invest, more time to create, more time to build, more gaps to close, and more doors to open. More time to restore. 100 days of service to you, and we're just getting started.
Let's all welcome our leader, our friend, our mayor, Mayor Randall Woodfin.
Thank you. Far too kind. Can I get an encore? Do you want more? Cook and roll with the Brooklyn Boys for one night.
Hey, good evening, everybody. It's good to see you all. Glad you all are with us tonight. I want to thank you all. Well, I want to thank Eunice for that introduction. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. You know, this event is not just about our first 100 days in office. Tonight is more about acknowledging where we are as a community. To take a pause. I think it's important that we take a pause and have a real conversation about the opportunities and challenges that are ahead of us. You know, for 2 years, the world was forced to shut down. Our roads and our offices were quiet. We were isolated, forced to reconsider every single thing. And then the murder of George Floyd unleashed calls for justice unseen since the 1960s. And so we've been extremely quiet and extremely loud all at once. Tonight's discussion will be lopsided because I plan to listen more than I talk. But I will share this. I firmly believe that Birmingham can still be the best version of itself. So, I don't know about y'all, but the past few weeks feels like we are all ready to connect. And think about it. I've seen people at gatherings and galas and sporting events. And I feel encouraged to see us connect, even as we remain vigilant in tracking COVID-19. The timing could not be more perfect, because more than 100 days ago, I recruited 13 community, civic, business, and not-for-profit leaders to facilitate a massive conversation, a conversation about the issues that are most important to us. These individuals were selected for a variety of reasons. But it boils down to two things. One, well, first, they have the credibility and stakeholders trust them. They've done work throughout the city and the region, and in many cases, in the nation because of their work. And they're proven leaders. But in addition to that, these are individuals who have expressed a desire to be a constructive part of solutions to the challenges that we all face in this community. I've asked them for more than a conversation. I've asked them to engage our residents and business owners, to lift up best practices, and to recommend actions our administration should start doing, should stop doing, or to continue to improve upon. And some of you may have asked this question, and I've heard it. Why is a transition team needed at all in the second term? The answer is simple. We launched a transition team because a new term is an honor, but it's also a new season. It's an opportunity to check our assumptions, to adjust, to maximize the moment. You know, seasons don't come every day. COVID has taught us not to take second chances for granted. And there's no guarantee we'll have other opportunities to do the work that we were elected to do and called to do. And so our transition team is designed to keep us leaning forward with a sense of urgency. Now, all that said, there are a few things. There are a few things that have not changed since my first term. We asked our employees to hold on to this mission of this administration, which is to build community through servant leadership. Our core values are evergreen and serve as the engine of our culture at City Hall. My team members and many are in the audience with me. And so as I say these things out loud, I want you to call them out loud with me. You know our core values: customer service, efficiency, effectiveness, transparency, and accountability. And we all agreed. We agreed that we will keep doing all of this. We will keep doing all of this by putting people first. So, we are not the only people putting people first. This is a great time to pause, to take the time and recognize and acknowledge members of the Birmingham City Council, my colleagues who are in the trenches with me, who are led by my friend and president, Wardine Alexander. I also like to acknowledge the Birmingham Board of Education and the board members led by Jason Meadows. And there are a host of other elected as well as appointed officials who represent and serve our residents. The truth is, I could not be more optimistic about this set of leaders and our commitment working together. So Eunice, let us introduce the transition team, starting with our 3 honorary co-chair members that I've asked to steward this effort for us.
Yes, sir, I will do exactly that. Did he even say please? Yes. Okay, the mayor appointed 3 known community leaders to serve as co-chairs of his transition team. The co-chairs served as thought partners, advocates, and conveners on behalf of the mayor and his transition subcommittee leadership team. I'd like to start with Mila Calhoun. Mila serves as vice president of the Birmingham division of Alabama Power Company, where she oversees the company's operations, sales, economic and community development, and external affairs. Please welcome Mila to the stage. Next, we have Dewana Thompson. Dewana serves as the president and CEO of the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute and a principal of Think Rubik's, a social change agency. Please welcome Dewana to the stage. And now let's bring Dr. Josh Carpenter to the stage. He serves as the president and CEO of Southern Research. Josh previously served as a committee leader for the mayor's first term transition. Please join us on stage, Josh. Please have a seat. They said to think of this as just having a conversation in my living room. And no one brought wine.
I got some quality H2O.
Beautiful Woodfin water, I'm into it. And make sure the sound's okay. Okay, so first of all, I want to acknowledge that 4 years ago, the mayor was new in his role, and all 3 of you were in different roles. And some of you are in different roles with different organizations now, so you have a pretty fresh perspective. So when we talk about progress in the city of Birmingham, I'd like to know what you're seeing from your employees and the people you serve, and what conversations are driving that. We can start with you.
Yes. So first off, thank you, Eunice. Thank you, Mayor. And thank all of you for being here. It has been an honor to be a part of this process and to get to work with and know Dewana and work with and get to know better Josh. When I talk to people about Birmingham and the vibrancy and the opportunity that we have, people are excited. The people I talk to are excited. And that is particularly important because they're clear-eyed about challenge and willing to lean in to achieve goals that advance what is beautiful about the city. And so that's what I'm hearing, and that's what gives me great excitement about what we'll hear from our subcommittee leaders in just a minute.
Yes. Well, I'm also honored to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to serve with these brilliant minds that we've been with. Eunice, thank you for this time. I think that, it's heavy on my heart right now as I've been watching the public hearing of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, how important representation is. And when I think about what I'm hearing at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, what I'm hearing in the communities that I serve, it's really this conversation on how do we reimagine ourselves? What is our narrative that we want the world to know about Birmingham? Yes, we know that we've had some challenges. We know that we came through and triumphantly over civil rights during that time, but what are the challenges and the opportunities that we have right now? And I can tell you that we are positioned as a city much better than so many cities across this country because of the leadership, not only of the mayor, but of so many of the people who work alongside him, but most importantly, because of how important and excited and skilled and involved our citizens are. And that's the conversation that we're having.
Well, I'm join a chorus of voices being honored to participate in this conversation. I also want to echo what has been said already. I think if the last 2 years have taught us anything, it's that we need one another and we need to have a lot of really open and honest conversations. And I think that Birmingham is also, we had this same exercise 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, we could not have anticipated what has happened and what has unfolded in the lives of our community. We could not have anticipated that we've lost thousands of residents due to a pandemic that changed all of our lives. But also, we created a Birmingham Promise program in 4 years. We employed 10,000 more people than were employed previously. We had unprecedented levels of capital investment. And so I think I'm joining a conversation, certainly emblematic of that is the transition committee members you'll hear from here in a minute, of people whose nerve and resolve is steeled. We are ready for 4 years of not becoming the town of perpetual promise, but of action.
Yeah.
And I feel like this committee is really laying the foundation for that.
Thank you for that. So Mayor Woodfin, you selected 5 transition teams, just as you did 4 years ago, but something was a little different. You changed the focus. Why was that?
You know, if I can be straight with you, I think my priorities haven't changed. I think they've evolved. And I think in evolving my priorities, I think it's fair to acknowledge, as Dave said up here, progress has been made in some areas where I think there's been a critical need for us to still lean in others. I'll use an example as neighborhood revitalization. Everybody knows that's been my number one priority. And I think that's been a priority of this council as well for the districts that they represent. But when you consider in this first term, a significant amount of tax dollars as well as millions towards dilapidated properties being removed, I think this term we want to focus. I always use the term going vertical with more single affordable housing and just focusing on housing, period. But I think the other thing, the same thing can be said for our homeless community, which has had an increase, unfortunately. And I think we have to lean in with the new energy to address issues for our homeless community. And the same can be said for art. I think not just arts, but arts and culture. We're seeing a growth in this community that needs to be acknowledged and celebrated. But a true renaissance cannot be had without art. And I think for us, for this team, we needed help to find the best path to continue to invest and support our arts community, which is pretty broad. I believe most of these transition committee members you all will hear from today really spent a lot of time focusing on the status of our first term commitments. But at the same time, or I would say more importantly, what they really did was help us find better ways to address all the issues that are presented or before us in this community.
Okay, so all of you served as, would you say, advocates, but also coaches, right? To on behalf of the mayor to some of these teams. And so we're going to open up the conversation to hear from some of your team leaders. So since you are seated next to me, you get to go first,
I'm
Mila.
first. And
the best.
well, we really are a team. I have to say that. So I'm going to introduce to you the Neighborhood Housing and Homeless Subcommittee. Eunice, thank you so much. I really enjoyed serving as a coach. I think it's an overstatement to say I was a coach. I learned so much from this subcommittee and the work that they do. So the subcommittee has been led by Kelly Gamble, who serves as the Executive Director of Neighborhood Housing Services, and his co-chair is Ms. Ann Regal. Rhymes with legal, beagle, eagle. The Executive Director of the Firehouse Shelter. Kelly and Ann, please join us on the podium and share highlights of your report.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Mayor Woodfin. Thank you, Ms. Calhoun, Ms. Blair, Ms. Thompson, Mr. Fields, Mr. Carpenter, and our staff liaison, Mr. Corey Stallworth, for your support of our subcommittee's group on neighbors experiencing homelessness and the neighborhood housing team for your dedication and commitment to providing safe, decent, and affordable housing options to the residents of the city of Birmingham. Our subcommittee considered the previous housing, neighborhood revitalization, and comprehensive plans where residents and neighborhoods provided the areas of focus that our committee would use to validate the priorities when it comes to neighborhood housing options. Our neighbors have articulated that scaled up action is now required on the community meetings, on the charrettes, on the neighborhood association meetings, so that now we can be in a place to build these that were used as the building blocks for those respective plans. The goals set for the Vision 2025 plan, which includes the production of 2,500 units of affordable housing, were at the core of our subcommittee's guidance on how to enhance the ecosystem and scale up production in the following areas. bundling services for affordable housing projects identified as priorities by the mayor's office, as well as our friends in community development, with the goal of really focusing and incentivizing development to responsibly engage in redeveloping activities in normally underserved communities. Creative methods for increasing housing options, such as the recommended pilot project of the tiny home development. And that particular recommendation has received a lot of traction and a lot of goodwill throughout the neighborhood and throughout the communities. Protecting and investing in neighborhoods and communities that we serve now to reduce displacement and improve the quality of life for typically underserved communities as well as our aging population. Our subcommittee engaged with residents, practitioners, private organizations across committees and municipal offices from community development as well as the Land Bank Authority to ensure that we were being fair, intentional, and strategic. Our final report took some of the best practices from similarly sized municipalities, current activities underway within the city of Birmingham, and a robust dialogue with for-profit, nonprofit, and municipal organizations. The purpose of our committee has always been with the end goal of alignment with and support of the Vision 2025 plan set forth by Mayor Woodfin and his administration, with the expectation that the ultimate benefactor will be the residents of our 99 neighborhoods. Again, thank you, Mayor Woodfin and the team, for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. Co-chairing with Ann Regal, the Firehouse Shelter, has been nothing short of an absolute joy. We are committed to ongoing engagement and discussion to uplift the voices of the families and the communities that we serve. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Woodfin, for allowing Kelly and I to bring together some of the best, brightest, and most compassionate people in our city to sit down and really think of a strategy to reduce homelessness and increase affordable housing for all of our citizens. As Kelly mentioned, we decided early on to break down our larger group into two smaller subcommittees so we could laser focus on both homelessness and housing whilst finding a bridge between the two issues, as we recognize that that space is one where people often struggle to move forward. As chair of Homeless Subcommittee, our goal was to identify the subpopulations that have been continuously left out of the conversation and give each person a seat at the table. To accomplish this, we conducted several surveys and held small listening groups with various faith-based leaders, community advocates, and organizers, nonprofits, and over 100 people currently experiencing homelessness. We use the information to prioritize a continuum of pilot projects that can be enacted within our city to achieve our ultimate goal of providing dignity, respect, and services to any person who might need support. Our first project was designed for people on the precipice of becoming homeless or who are inadequately housed. We explored universal income, a fund to help people in real time with crisis under $250, and identified a program out of Atlanta that would help people stay and thrive in their homes. By using existing community collateral, we would be able to uplift and provide support to the people and the organizations that are already doing phenomenal work. The second and third projects we are recommending are geared to those already experiencing homelessness. Developing a one-stop shop and permanent warming center that brings service providers under one roof is ambitious, but with collaboration and an appropriate space, we feel that it will provide a streamlined process and easier access to life-saving interventions. Finally, it is the recommendation of the committee that a safer sleep area be developed to serve those who are in pre-contemplation phase and who do not wish to or cannot utilize the existing shelter service system. A safer sleep area is based on consumer choice, harm reduction, and trauma-informed care. And it would provide micro-sheltering, a secure area for people living in their cars, and a centralized feeding space, including public restrooms and other amenities, to make life a little easier for our neighbors experiencing homelessness and the people that are called to serve them. Our committee recognizes that each of these projects will take communication, cooperation, and resources, but it is the moral imperative that all citizens have access to the tools needed to live a happy and healthy life and are truly woven into the fabric of our community. Thank you.
So they are incredible thought leaders, very energetic, very collaborative. It was a real pleasure. So now, Mr. Mayor, we get to ask you, what do you think about what you've heard?
I love it. I think there are a couple of things that immediately come to mind. First, the tiny home project, to see that come to fruition, I'm very excited about. But everybody, I want to speak to Kelly and Ann's heart. These are, if you do not know them, I hope at some point you get to know these two people for the organizations they lead, but just for the community impact that they have as well. I appreciate their hearts. And I will tell you, in these topics of housing, as well as addressing homelessness, moral imperative was the word you used, and that's running through my mind. So the first thing is, I'm looking forward to digesting this report, digging in some more and taking these recommendations, particularly around this. There is an organization called One Roof, but the tangible notion of having one place for shelter and housing and feeding, et cetera, services. Look forward to that. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Kelly and Ann, thank you so much for that. Next, we have Dewana, who is connected with the Arts and Culture team.
Yes, thank you, Eunice. I want you to know, if there is an advocate for arts and culture, it is me. I love that part of the vibrancy of our city. And we got a lot going on in Birmingham in this space. But in many ways, I think that there are some things that we can be doing better. And so this group launched a survey that collected over 500 responses from community members. But I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm going to let them talk to you about what they have and their recommendations for the future. I'd like to invite to the Birmingham stage our own jazz standard himself, Mr. Eric Essex, from his artistry, which will be on stage at the World Games. Eric also serves as the program director for the Alice Stevens Center at UAB. His phenomenal co-chair is a major supporter and advocate for the arts, whose effort helped launch the new Red Mountain Theater Company campus. So let's welcome both Ms. Catherine Harbert and Mr. Eric Essex to the podium.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for giving us this opportunity this evening. I know firsthand how powerful the arts can be in the lives of people, especially young people. Music changed my life when I got my first guitar at age 10, and so did the many trips to the Boutwell Auditorium to see the symphony, ballet, and theater productions. These experiences would later inform my decision to become an artist, and later a presenter and curator of the arts at the Alice Stevens Center. So I was excited to serve as co-chair of this committee because I believe that a strong arts community supported by a city government that prioritizes the arts can impact lives in Birmingham as mine was impacted. I feel the work that we have done here is important. And I'd like to thank Catherine, Alicia Johnson-Williams, Valerie Wilson, Maya Webster, and every person who has been a part of this process for their hard work. We could not have done this without you all. The mayor challenged us to find ways to increase tourism and make Birmingham a destination city by focusing on the arts, culture, and entertainment. He encouraged us to do this by listening to the voices of as many of our citizens as possible. We first assembled a focus group made up of individuals from the arts community, arts organizations, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, as well as educators and entrepreneurs. They gave us invaluable information and insight. Their recommendations helped us to create a comprehensive arts survey, which was sent out to the leaders of all the neighborhoods and a broad cross-section of people and organizations throughout the city of Birmingham. We wound up with over 500 respondents to this survey. Next, we conducted 2 virtual town hall events, one specifically for emerging artists and presenters at the mayor's request, and another for the general public to address questions and concerns. In addition, we looked at what other cities are doing, particularly the city of Huntsville with the establishment of a 9-member music board and also the appointment of a music officer.
Thank you, Eric. We've done a lot of work, and it's been a great privilege to serve with Eric and this committee who provided lots of time and energy and input. And although I'm not an artist like Eric, I love and support the arts and have worked to raise money for many cultural and arts organizations. I believe whether it's music, theater, dance, food, crafts, visual arts, these are the heart and the soul of a city. They are a place where all people, no matter their gender, race, background, they can use their gifts and talents, tell their stories, and find joy, hope, and healing. This was confirmed to us when we reached, in our community conversations, all the people that we reached through the virtual town halls and the surveys, when over 70% of all the people that we talked to and in our survey said very clearly that it was extremely important to them for the city of Birmingham to financially support the arts. We heard that loud and clear. So our recommendations to Mayor Woodfin are some very specific and practical and doable things that our city can do right away to support the arts and the cultural organizations, because we know these are important to our community, to a thriving community. And the first is to establish an Office of Arts and Cultural Affairs as a centralized clearinghouse, a place to gather and disseminate information about all the arts and cultural organizations in our community. And the second is to provide a calendar of their offerings that everyone would have access to, that we would disseminate in many different forms, social media and all the forms that people get information. These roles could actually be outsourced to an organization which is already up and running, Create Birmingham, that has the software that cities like Austin and Nashville use for their calendars, and it could be expanded for our arts and cultural organizations. We believe a centralized office like this and a well-done calendar would be a great place to brand Birmingham as a vibrant and growing city where the arts thrive for everyone, so that everyone in our community and people from other places would have information and access to Birmingham's amazing arts and cultural offerings. So we thank Mayor Woodfin and his team for considering these recommendations and also for caring about our city and caring about the arts and the artists here and all the thriving organizations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much. And they worked really hard on specific things, because we don't like ambiguity where I'm from. We like some specific things. So thank you all so much for that. Mayor Woodfin, what you think about these recommendations?
Madam CEO, I could just be very short here and use 2 words my great-grandmother and mother taught me and say, yes, ma'am. But in all seriousness, to Eric and Catherine, thank you so much. Y'all have been a part of this community for a long time on the art scene with various, I guess your perspective and what you've been a part of is different, but you come together to make this work. I'm particularly excited about even diving into 500 plus people response. I don't know if I'll be able to read all 500, but that's a lot of information you all have been able to gather. This is what I'll say. And to be totally honest, as an administration working with the council, this first term, we didn't lean on in the first term, we didn't lean in on the arts. We leaned in more on public infrastructure and public safety. But I think it's important that we believe in the arts. And as an administration, we do everything we can to support our art community. With that said, you're right. I think the city of Birmingham should immediately invest in our partnership with Create Birmingham and not reinvent the wheel. So you have my word and commitment on that. I would say the other thing is you can expect a more hands-on approach from this administration as we make significant investments in our arts and cultural community. So look forward again to nerding out and reading some more information and recommendations. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Eric and Catherine, I like the way Eric let Catherine do the now. You can do this right now.
Smooth.
You know, it's the old thing they say, if he wanted to, he would. We'll see. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so now we are going to our next co-chair, that is Dr. Carpenter. And he has the fun one, which is the Accountable and Efficient Government Team.
Yeah, nothing says fun like accountability and efficiency. No offense to Chief Sparks and the seat of values, obviously. This was, not the fun committee, but as y'all know, the work of accountable and efficient government is many times thankless. It's often invisible, but it is important to all of us because it is something that we all encounter. And the truth is that inefficiency in government tends to hurt those who can afford it least. So fortunately, we have two experienced business leaders who were willing to lean into this process and lend their expertise to the cause. So I'd like to invite to stage Mr. Brian Giottina, who is the Chief Development Officer at Blocks. Brian was actually a part of the Mayor's Finance Advisory Committee, which didn't just stop at a transition advisory role a couple of years ago. They leaned in for 4 years and helped solve the pension crisis that faced the city a few years ago. His co-chair is Mr. Merrill Stewart, good friend and president and CEO of Stewart Perry Construction. Gentlemen, please join us at the podium and share with us your report.
Thank you.
You know, being an immigrant to Birmingham many years ago, I've never been more excited about our future. I've talked to Randall many times about our future, and the best days of Birmingham are ahead of us because of what we've learned, and we generally get along pretty well. Maybe not perfect, but pretty well. And we also take action, right, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
We've been in business 35 years, and we hired a CFO 15 years ago. And he told me one day, he said, Merrill, your best assets are not what's in the bank. Your best assets are those people that walk in and out of your front door every day. And I believe that. And the older I get, the more I believe that. And having worked with the city government the last few weeks, learning people here in the organization of the city, I can tell you we've got some great people at the city, and we want to make them better. And putting people first is really it's a way to success, because without good people, you will not ever be successful. And I'm glad to recognize the fact that our committee was not the sexiest we thought it was. But anyway, so we drew short straws, and we're here. I will say, though, that we focused on 3 important areas, being very specific, and they're very doable. And if we achieve these results and we put people first, we put the right people into place, the city can even grow better. And it's time that the world recognize Birmingham. My company works around the United States in lots of different offices, and whenever I go to a hotel, someone says, where are you from? And I'll say Birmingham. I do not say Birmingham, Alabama, I say Birmingham, because they should know it's Birmingham. And then the next question is, as my friend Raphael Bostic said to me one time, he said, and the next question you say is, have you been to Birmingham? And if not, you need to go because it's exciting. So we're glad to be here. We picked 3 areas to focus on. One being PEP, which some of my guys tell me that you need a case of aspirin when you leave a PEP office in any city, which is planning, engineering, and permits. The second one is human resources and talent recruitment, because you can't do anything great without great people. And the third is IMS, which we all need. I'm going to focus on PEP for a moment, and Brian's going to talk about the other 2. When we first met with PEP, we thought it was confusing. It is confusing. It's complex, but we've got some great leadership at PEP, and they're going to reorganize things. They've got some great software in place. And one of our recommendations to the city, as Catherine said now, is to give them help support, because when you're out there working permits and plans, you got to have somebody to train. And we hope that the city will give that to the PEP department. And if this occurs, we think in 18 months, you'll see a different PEP department. But specifically, Three areas we suggested. One is deploy electronic plan submittal process. No more carrying plans to PEP. I see Jill over there saying yes. The other one is implement online permitting guide. And then the third one, I think, which is a great idea, is to establish permit ambassadors, where you come to the PEP and you're looking for housing, you've got somebody to be your advocate there. So we're excited about that. Brian's been a great partner, and I appreciate you being with us, Brian, and your show. Thank you.
Well, at some point in my life, I'm going to get something exciting, but I did not say that to my wife. Okay.
Brian, no.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. This is what happens. I'm already out of time. And I got the most important things to talk about. Very quickly, Merrill covered a lot of it. And in all seriousness, I've had the pleasure of working with the mayor for quite a while and working on at the school board with him. And Merrill's comment about employees being critical is something that you can't take lightly. You don't find great organizations that don't put human resources, and you don't put IT at the absolute top. And Jill here, who we have become, very close, she's dealing, how do we attract and recruit the same people that everybody in this room wants to be working for their organizations. The people that I'm trying to recruit every day to come to my growing organization are the best in class, and we can do it. And so we have to create an environment where the city of Birmingham can begin to deal with that. I don't have enough time to go into all of these very, very exciting things, but I would encourage the mayor and the council to really look at what needs to be done. Some of this is not glamorous, as we talked about in PEP, but it's absolutely critical to the function of the government, and it's critical to the way that the employees are cared for. We have too many people doing things that are transactional, and what they should be doing is providing better service to the employees and creating a better work environment. And the second one on IMS is that we're a massive organization. The city of Birmingham is a massive organization. And when you think about it from a technology standpoint, my company runs a server and email and a few other things. We're running police and fire and healthcare and budget and all the other components. So it has been something that has been easy to discard. Okay, and it needs to be something that is brought to the highest priority, and HR and IT be put in a situation where they become an asset for the city, help us attract and retain the best. And I think the reason I always get the boring stuff is because I want to remind everybody I am the only person that's beat Mayor Woodfin in an election.
So because of Brian's comments, we will always associate efficient and effective government with excitement. Sincerely, Mayor, you began your whole effort in politics on putting people first, and that starts with your employees. And if the proposals that Brian, Merrill, and their team put together with your staff come true, it could really change the way the city of Birmingham does business. How would you respond to that?
He's right, by the way. I had a sneak peek at some of the recommendations dealing with efficient government and accountability. I haven't had a chance to read the entire thing, but I look forward to it. But they're big recommendations. And I think the way I can respond to that is by saying, listen, I recall, my memory serves, sitting on a stage like this about 4 years ago. And we shared it to the public. Our city's pension was underfunded, and we needed to fix it. And so we did. We fixed it. And I think that's an example of doing the right thing, making our government more efficient, but also that serves for us to internally support our employees. But I think the other thing is it's important that I and my team, we want to be able to hire. We want to be able to onboard and train and grow, y'all. We want to grow talent at a rate that makes our city competitive. And that means doing everything we can to not only invest in our current employees, but doing what we need to be attractive enough to hire better and more talent. I believe there are other efficiencies to be found. And I believe by uncovering some of these recommendations presented by y'all, we'll be able to lean in and address. So thank you for the non-sexy work.
Thank you so much to Brian and Meryl for the great work. Meryl, I'm not sure if you know Kelly and Ann, but if your wife is watching, they can help you with the homelessness that you'll probably be facing this evening. They've done the work. Lord. All right, Dewana. Education and talent are up next.
It's been fun. Well, we know that this mayor has a heart for education and talent based on not only his work with the school board, but also with the Birmingham Promise. And I've known that about him as long as I've known him as well. And this is one of those committees that represents a shift in the mayor's focus on education. And I believe you'll hear some of that reflected in their report. I'd also like to say I'm a bit biased because both of these are Ramsey graduates and you know how we do. So I'd like to invite to the stage Dr. Ashley Samuels, who serves as the ED for the Birmingham Education Foundation, and her co-chair, Wayman Jackson, who serves as CEO of Ed Farm, a technology education agency. Dr. Samuels and Wayman, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mayor Woodfin and his wonderful staff for the opportunity to contribute to this important work. To Tracy Bennett, Marion Michelle, and Damon Bailey, and the entire Education and Talent Subcommittee, we could not have done this work without you. I was born and raised in Birmingham. I attended Washington K-8 School, go Braves, Ramsey High School, go Rams, and I have 5 degrees from UAB, go Blazers.
Ooh.
Yes, this means that I received all of my education on the south side of Birmingham, right? This also means that I love education and I love Birmingham. As a former principal of 7 years, I know firsthand the challenges and the great successes that are within our schools. This knowledge has driven my desire to truly make a positive impact on education within the city of Birmingham. So the Education and Talent Subcommittee was tasked with gathering information and making recommendations for our youngest constituents, our children. To begin this process, my subcommittee co-chair and I, guided by Mayor Woodfin's Vision 2025, convened a team of colleagues from both the education and talent arenas. This team included pre-K through 12th grade teachers, human resources directors, early childhood directors, company CEOs, literacy coaches, marketing managers, provosts, and economic development managers, just to name a few. In addition to our weekly meetings filled with rich discussion, the committee developed and circulated a survey and held a virtual town hall, both in an effort to capture voices from the community. The information collected from the survey and the virtual town hall was then compiled, and the team looked for reoccurring themes. Those themes will become the recommendations that you'll hear just in a minute. Regarding birth to 5 and K-12, we want to establish a shared priority around developing and delivering early childhood centers across the Birmingham City Schools and clarify a plan for marketing and connecting early learning opportunities to families and educating parents on available subsidies and supports and to establish their young learners and make sure that they get access to high quality education. An example of this can be seen with the launch of the Page Pals Reading Initiative program to support the state of Alabama's Literacy Act. Support all early childhood centers in targeting neighborhoods to improve quality where the gaps currently exist by providing access to necessary funding supports and establishing vehicles and structures for continuous learning and improvement. Identify a partner to train and support naturally existing care providers in mixed delivery methods, inclusive of home-based providers, licensed family child care providers, centers, families, friends, and neighborhood caregivers. Evaluate the impact of current mental health support intervention in Birmingham City Schools and determine a sustainability plan for those things. Continue enlisting and attracting Birmingham City School students to take advantage of internships and available scholarship opportunities and support through Birmingham Promise, a highly successful Birmingham initiative that began as a result of previous recommendations. With respect to wraparound services, the recommendations are to continue the recommendations that were made in the previous transition plan. Continue exploring a partnership with programs like Summer Adventures in Learning to expand the availability of the program and to students that are below grade level. Continuing allow the city's Division of Youth Services to serve as a lead agency in true partnership with Birmingham City Schools and delivering efficient and effective successful wraparound programs. An example of this can be seen with the Harlem Children's Zone in New York, a highly successful wraparound services model.
Thank you, Dr. Samuels. When I arrived, I asked Dr. Samuels if she would let me read over her remarks, and I got to that second sentence, and she had 5 degrees listed from UAB, and I was like, "Are you really going to say that?" It would take my 1 UAB degree. Chaz is 2 UAB degrees, and Josh is 2 UAB degrees, for 3 of us men to equal. So I want to applaud you and your leadership, newly minted leadership for the Birmingham Education Foundation, to the mayor, this wonderful transition team. Thank you from our subcommittee on behalf of us for being able to do this work with you and with this community. This is truly an amazing time. And then if you think about what Meryl said, they were not the sizzle and the appeal. But if you look in your books, you know, what Ashley and I have really touted ourselves as, we are the heart. And it's listed right there. These 2 components, education and talent, sit at the heart of opportunity for this city. We all go to school somewhere. We all are educated somewhere. That's one of the commonalities that we all have. And so we think of the work that we do in this space and the many leaders who are here that are in this space as the heart of what we do. Now, you will be introduced to the sizzle next, and that's economic development. They will follow, but that will be your sizzle for what you're doing. But we sit at a golden age, a golden time for what we're doing right now as it relates to education, public and private partnerships. And if you just walk with me, if you think about the city where we live over the past 30 or 40 years, you've had these tremendous opportunities or shifts in the story of what we've been doing as a community in Birmingham. When you think about these momentum transitions of what we've had, shifts in power, shifts in ideology, shifts in innovation. You think about Mayor Arrington coming on as the first African-American mayor in the city. And how you meet the moment of the time when these changes happen. So thinking about, you know, what do you have to change internally within a city structure as far as departments not being set up to be inclusive, thinking about how do you really galvanize the strength of a neighborhood, and you get, you know, incubated and then spit out of this, the neighborhood association that kind of really drive a lot of the work that we do. And you continue to think about these shifts and changes as we go. Take yourselves to 2007, 2008, when you start thinking about Railroad Park and public and private partnerships that began to sprout up, and this community seemingly coming together around something bigger and something greater, where we started to really see movement and momentum. When I think about this current mayor, when I think about this council, the previous council, you begin to think about how they are beginning to meet this moment of education and innovation. And that is truly a place and a time where we sit, where if you are not meeting this moment of now and meeting this moment of the future as it relates to innovation, technology, education, entrepreneurship, and opportunities for not only our students, but for those underserved individuals in this community, you will not be doing what it takes to be a successful and viable city in the years to come. And so what I'm proud of with the work that this group is doing and the leadership of this mayor is that we are as a city meeting this moment and meeting the moment of the future. So everyone give yourselves a hand for being a part of that. So our recommendations as it relates to workforce and talent, a couple of the things that I will mention, you oftentimes don't think of a city as an incubator for great ideas and an incubator for, new innovations. When you think about some of the things that have come to bear over the past 4 years and that will be occurring in the future, you think about Birmingham Promise. We have things in this community that other people, other cities want. You think about Birmingham Strong, a program that was developed with many of the leaders sitting here that met the moment for COVID at that time. You think about the guaranteed income for mothers. You think about what this pandemic has done and who's been impacted the most with that. Oftentimes it has been the females of our family, the mothers. So you think about how can you really help individuals transition through education and through workforce so they can actually receive the training that they need. You think about an organization like the one that I'm fortunate to run, Ed Farm. Many of these initiatives, Innovate Birmingham, the bold program that the mayor and his leadership and the council actually approves funds for, those are programs that actually meet the moments for many of these residents in the city. So those are the things that as a group, as subcommittee, that we were championing. The last piece of the recommendations that we really wanted to put in place in order to keep doing the type of work that we're doing and being on the front end of innovative change in the city, continue to have to look at the landscape of what's occurring in the city. So continue to identify existing high quality workforce development programs and strategies and providing capacity. Continue exploring incentive programs to encourage graduating students not only to be educated here, but to stay here once they finish. And lastly, expand and improve access to adult training and education programs aimed at providing credentials, certifications, and reskilling and upskilling residents in the city of Birmingham. In closing, on behalf of the subcommittee that we had the opportunity to work with and bring together around this type of work, it was truly an honor for those of us who are directly serving individuals each day in this nonprofit space, in a training space, where we're trying to make sure that the opportunities that those individuals have that are actively in the workforce and the opportunities that individuals have who are in our school system here in Birmingham, that they can actually reach and receive those opportunities. So on behalf of our committee, thank you. Thank y'all for the opportunity.
Thank you both for meeting the moment, as Raymond would say. Mayor, I know that you probably could go on and on about this.
I could.
What are you thinking as it relates to, obviously we have some wonderful things that were started in your last administration or the last time, but what are you thinking about these newer recommendations?
So I would say I'm excited. I want to thank Doc Samuels and Wayman and your whole team for these recommendations. Now, y'all should know if there's anything I'm gonna spend time on, it's gonna be this, because my heart is here. But I'll say this, part of this meeting the moment, and I'll try to make this very quick. I don't think there's ever been a time where you've had full alignment between mayor, council, and school board as, if my math is right, 19 elected officials who literally all have the same interest in getting this right. And they're seated right here. So again, I just want to pause and thank them because they are as passionate as I am about making sure we do every single thing we can to educate our children. So thank y'all for that. Our focus, right? This is one of those areas where it's still a priority, but we've had a shift. That first term, we put everything, y'all, in getting the exit plan right as far as the Birmingham Promise with apprenticeships and scholarships for our young people. But I think now I think it's important to acknowledge we have a long way to go in supporting something that the school board is not responsible for, the school system is not responsible for, which is the foundational years of birth to 5 years of age. We got to get our foundation right for our children if the school system is going to ever be successful. And so in leveling up on that, moving forward, K through third, we have to do everything we can to support literacy for our youngest children who are in elementary school. The Alabama, this new law that talks about where third graders have to be or the risk of failure for me is unacceptable, and I know for them is unacceptable. So I agree. We have to build on the work we started with the promise, but we got to get these younger years right. So I look forward to literally leaning all the way in on this.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much to Wayman and Dr. Samuels. Merrill, did you see how he ingratiated himself to the woman? He will have a home to go to. This guy. Okay, Josh, our final group is focused on entrepreneurship and economic development.
Well, as many of you know, I served as Director of Innovation and Economic Opportunity for much of the mayor's first term with many of my closest friends and some of the hardest working people I know, many of whom are in this room tonight. And it is amazing how much has changed just in the 18 months since I left that post. 85,000 Jefferson County residents lost work between April 2020 and August 2020. And the work to rebuild our economy in a more inclusive and sustainable way has been underway with many of the folks here in this room. But it's involved a lot of tough conversations that our two co-chairs here have been leading. So I'd like to invite to the stage Ms. Khadija Abdullah. She's Vice President of Economic Development for SHIFT, and her co-chair, the CEO of the Economic Development Partnership of Alabama, Mr. Greg Barker.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Khadija Abdullah, and on behalf of my co-chair, Greg Barker, and the members of the small business community and the participants in the Entrepreneurship and Economic Development Committee, I'd like to thank the mayor for the opportunity to contribute to this important effort. I'd also like to thank the following members of your staff: Mo Shorts, Coriata Hauser, and Cornell Wesley, whose without your support, we would not be able to have even made any progress on this. Before I begin, I'd like to share a quick personal story for those of y'all I do not know. I grew up in West Birmingham in a 2-bedroom home with my parents, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, and my 8 siblings. Breathe that in for a second. My parents, when they got married, they said they wanted 12 children. Thank goodness they only had 9. So there are 9 of us, and there are 9 Abdullah kids walking around Birmingham and probably the Southeast. But my mother and my father were hardworking, loving parents. They both were proud HBCU college graduates, and they did the best they could to provide support for their 9 children. As a child, I recall both of my parents at times working multiple jobs to keep the lights on in our home and food on our table. In preparation for my remarks tonight, I spoke with my mother, who shared that even as a college graduate, the job that she worked at here in Birmingham paid her less than $10,000, which we all know was likely not enough to support her family. Further, as we were texting in preparation for this evening just a moment ago, she reminded me when she retired just a few years ago that she was still only making just over $30,000. I shared this because serving on this committee has been an important and personal one for me, and that it's allowed me and others to really consider what a quality job is and think deeply about not an abstract theory of economic development, but concretely what is needed to ensure families across our beloved city and communities are able to thrive. Simply stated, the goal of our Entrepreneurship and Economic Development Committee is to foster inclusive, sustainable growth for all Birmingham citizens through the coordinated efforts of the mayor's office and all the economic development organizations and the Small Business Council serving the city of Birmingham. Virtually every major economic development entity serving the city has been involved in this effort so far. And while we've made tremendous progress, we recognize that our work is far from over. And we know that this collaborative process is going to have to continue far beyond these 100 days. But our goal is to ensure that we have a coordinated growth strategy so that all Birmingham citizens see a potential growth opportunity for themselves and their families. So our approach. To do this, our subcommittee leveraged a myriad of engagements, such as the Joint Committee Survey with the Education and Talent Subcommittee, to understand what Birmingham citizens want from a quality job, how they define quality jobs, the barriers to achieving quality jobs, and their hopes and advice for how to support Birminghamians in accessing those jobs. Additionally, the subcommittee engaged in community meetings with existing economic development organizations and one-on-one conversations with members of the small business community to inform our insights and our recommendations moving forward. You can read the final report, and so I won't belabor that. However, within our report, you'll find a few things that we want to work on. A plan to define, set goals, and create metrics around the growth of quality jobs and attracting capital investments by supporting startup communities, supporting existing businesses in the city with a focus on our small businesses, attracting targeted companies and sectors to the city, such as bioscience, healthcare, health tech, SaaS, including fintech, logistics, advanced manufacturing, and neighborhood businesses, services, and products. The focus will also be on sustainable jobs for all Birmingham citizens. But specifically, we want to ensure women, Black people, and other people of color begin to realize the growth opportunities they deeply deserve. People who have received hard-earned credentials will be able to put those credentials to work in careers in this city and won't have to leave the area. When we finalize our coordinated strategy, our plan is to develop associated metrics and measures so we can track progress, so we'll know what is working and what needs to be tweaked. In this ever-changing economy, dashboards with the appropriate metrics and measures will be critical to ensure that we are able to make strategic needed adjustments as quickly as possible. You can expect our organizations to begin reporting progress on these later on this year. So before I kick it over to my co-chair, who's going to share our recommendations, I'd like to pause and thank the mayor again for taking a positive, proactive role in bringing all the economic development organizations and our small business councils together in one room to get this process started, and for your continued participation and encouragement. One thing that I want to note, and this was a part of the discussion of some of the small groups, is in our collective memory of the professionals that manage those organizations, no one can remember a time when all those individuals in the same room being asked to develop a collaborative plan with a common vision. It's within this effort that makes this plan different from anything that's happened in the past. So thank you. I should also take a moment to thank the various organizations and individuals who participated in surveys and your willingness to help us in this. Your names are listed in the report. If we missed anyone, please let us know. We'd love for you to join our work. And so now, briefly for our recommendations, I'll kick it over to my co-chair.
Great. Thank you, Khadijah. And you got just a small glimpse of the passion that she's brought to this effort the entire time. And that's the first time I've actually heard the entire story. And you know, gosh, it's so personal for you. And that personal approach and passion comes through, and she's done great in leading this. So for us going forward, we think that there's a few things that we've got to do. One is we've got to maintain engagement. Maintain engagement from the mayor and his office. As Khadijah said, we wouldn't have gotten this far without the mayor's leadership. I've been around economic development for 30 some odd years in Birmingham, and I never remember a time, as Khadijah said, that we had everybody in the room and the mayor and the leader of the city saying, you've got to figure out a way to come up with collaborative strategies that generates inclusive growth, and you got to hold yourself accountable. That's different, and we got to maintain that engagement, not only from the mayor's office, but for all the economic development organizations that are serving Birmingham and the citizens of Birmingham, my organization included. There's a few other things that we've got to be sure to do that will be outside the scope of economic development organizations to develop the partnerships and alliances it's going to take for Birmingham to be successful. A lot of them you've already heard from our colleagues earlier this evening. One is people. We've got to be sure that Birmingham citizens receive the education and training that they need to ascend to these targeted jobs for the growth that they want and deserve. Two, physical infrastructure. We need to be sure that we've got the road network, the airport, the telecommunication infrastructure that companies and citizens in Birmingham are going to need to get to these jobs and for these companies to get their products to their customers. We've got to be sure that we've got an ease of doing business with
with the city of Birmingham. That includes business support programs and the like. All of those are important. Last but not least is quality of life. We've got to be sure that we've got the right sort of recreational opportunities and arts and sports. We've got to be sure that we have that, because quality of life and quality of place is how a lot of companies make business decisions. These are exciting times in economic development, no question about that. We have every right to be fiercely proud of all the economic development progress that Birmingham has made the last 4 years. We have the obligation not to be satisfied, though. We are 100% convinced that if we can maintain, sustain, and when we execute these efforts, these collaborative efforts, we're 100% convinced that we'll have the type of inclusive growth that we want for all Birmingham citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Khadijah. Mayor, there was a lot to unpack there. But I think, what I heard sort of loud and clear is your role as a convener, your role in prioritizing what we measure and how we measure it and who we measure it for. And really all the steps that we need to take, the creativity, the collaboration to build an economy where everyone does have a fair shot to thrive. How would you react to that?
Well, one, thank you, Khadijah and Greg, both. I'll say this, Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think summarizing what you said, we have the right to be proud of our success and progress over the last 4 years, but we can't be satisfied. All right, y'all heard that. I think in listening to what they both said, I have two takeaways. One, we have to grow jobs, y'all. But two, and this is not the same, we have to grow quality jobs that are accessible to all of our citizens and Birminghamians, because that's literally what we have to do. And so I think from your recommendations that I'll read as well, I want to bundle all of that and continue that work from this committee through Prosper Birmingham, who I've asked to keep us honest in this conversation and keep these various economic development organizations aligned so we can yield a product that works for the entire community instead of the one-offs of us not communicating or talking to each other. So thank y'all for the work. It really means a lot.
Thank you so much, Greg and Khadijah. And I will say, I went to college with one of those Abdullahs, Halima. So I feel like a proud big sister right now. Mayor, do you have some closing remarks for us?
Yeah, briefly, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the 3 honorary co-chairs. I want to thank the leaders of these subcommittees for your tremendous work and effort and everything you've done to get us to this point. Thank you all for giving me a lot to consider, truthfully. Fortunately, to be honest, we don't have to attempt to do it all at once. But I do think it's important that we do it with a sense of urgency and everything you laid out. And so with that, I believe to my core, y'all have heard me say this before, if you've been listening to some of the things I've consistently said over the last 4+ years, there are more solutions than there are problems in this community. And you all have laid out a tremendous amount of recommendations that I think that we can agree upon and move on. And so I have one request from everybody that's listening to this. Let's continue to work together. And I think within that, if you are inspired by what you've heard tonight, I want to encourage you all to get involved through a program called ACE. ACE stands for the Academy of Civic Engagement. I believe it actually begins next week, April 4th. But sign up. That's a way for you to stay connected to this administration. But that's a way for you all to stay connected with your neighbors and residents throughout the entire city as well. And so for those of you watching online, of course, I think Eunice mentioned it earlier, but you can download this transition report, which I really hope you take the time, if you can't read it in its entirety, to read the top line, which is at birminghamal.gov/strategy. And so with that, before we transition, Eunice, if it's okay with you, I would like to offer our 3 honorary co-chairs to say whatever last remarks they would like as well.
It's your party, yeah.
Okay, I'll go first again. Thank you. Truly, thank you for your faith and your courage and your drive and grit and commitment. This work, though broken out into various subcommittees, really is the through line of what it means to build Birmingham in the vision, in the way that does put people first. And you have put that in place.
Thank you.
And we are grateful to you for that. And I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
I am a person of faith. My dad is a pastor. He's here with me tonight. And one of the quotes that I've moved by is Gandhi said that there are people who are so hungry that God can only appear to them in the form of bread. And I've always asked myself, what is my bread? What is the thing that God can only do through me? And I believe that has at the core of me is my service. And so this opportunity that you've given myself, our co-chairs and our subcommittees to serve, it's really a divine thing for me. And I want to appreciate you for operating always as a servant leader, for challenging us to be servant leaders. And my challenge to everyone here and that's watching is to find your bread. What is it that you can do? How can you serve? Because everybody can be great because everybody can serve. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Always deep. Always.
Well, in the spirit of Women's History Month, I just want to thank, it was an incredible pleasure to serve alongside Dewana and Mila as two co-chairs and hang out with Eunice in her living room without wine tonight. I think, Mayor, there are so many politicians who hide behind the rhetorical elegance of neatly edited talking points. But you ask questions, and you've invited through this process our community to ask questions with and alongside you. And I know that that's something that's each of these elected representatives here do as well. And I know that you have faith in them. But I think my challenge is that we don't just ask questions once every 4 years. Yeah. Because if we've learned anything in the last couple of years, we have questions every day. And we need to build the types of trust, the types of relationships that create opportunities for these types of questions. My other challenge is for you to pick one piece of this. There's a lot to unpack, but for everybody who's here, for everybody who's watching, pick one piece of this that you will commit to. It's going to take all of us to figure out how we create quality jobs long-term, how we create a more fair economy, how we create opportunities in education, how we take care of the least of these among us. And this is just a starting point, but I think it's a great one. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Let's give it up again for all of our co-chairs and Mayor Woodfin. I started feeling like I was in my living room. I had to grunt a little bit getting up. All right. So, Mayor, I understand we do have some special presentations to make tonight. So if you would make your way to the center of the stage, and if our three co-chairs could please join Mayor Woodfin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We certainly didn't know.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Yeah. So the mayor is presenting the co-chairs with a special proclamation from the city.
Thank you.
And we're not done. Mayor Woodfin would also like to acknowledge the subcommittee co-chairs. So if you all would please come join the mayor on stage for your proclamation from the city, as well as a group photo. We'd like to congratulate and recognize and thank again Kelly Gamble, Ann Regal, Eric Essex, Catherine Harbert, Merrill Stewart Jr., Brian Giantina, Dr. Ashley Moore Samuels, Wayman Jackson Jr., Khadijah Abdullah, and Greg Barker. Thank you all so much for all your work. That was fun to watch. All the brightest minds in the city trying to figure out how to take a picture. Now, we would also be remiss if we did not thank all of the city employees who are always helping, including DPW, OPI, IMS, the Birmingham Museum of Art, all of our greeters this evening, and a special shout out and thank you to the transition team, city staff support, including Ed Fields, Corey Stallworth, Tracy Bennett, Alicia Johnson-Williams, Alicia Lumpkin-Whitfield, Belinda Bertrand, Monique Shorts, and Shonda Temple. Thank you all so much for your leadership and all of your service to Birmingham. I would like to take this personal moment to thank you for allowing me to be a part of your special day. And I guess I'll just be mailed my proclamation. Like everybody got one that was standing up here for me. Okay, it was awkward for me. Okay, well, if you're fine with it. Okay, now it is my privilege and pleasure and honor to bring to this stage the Senior Project Manager for the City of Birmingham, Ms. Shonda Temple.
Thank you, Eunice. Of course, we couldn't forget someone like you, so you just hold right there. Just hold right there. Just a minute, just a minute. When most people hear the name Denzel, they think of the superstar who starred in countless blockbuster movies. But when I think of Denzel, and also when the mayor thinks of Denzel, it brings to mind attorney Denzel Okineddo. Did I get that right? Sorry. A brilliant attorney who played a tremendous supporting role in this transition. Denzel, the mayor would like to present you with a special proclamation tonight. So if you'll please come to the stage.
Yeah, you know who's gonna do this.
Thank you, Denzel. And last but not least, of course, we cannot forget Eunice Elliott. We thank We really like you, Eunice. We really like you. We thank you. Yes, yes.
Well, let me say, I'm sorry, I got more excited. I thought you got me a Denzel. He's an attorney? Okay, I'll take it.
Eunice. Eunice, we thank you.
Thank you.
We thank you for your professionalism, your comedic charm and timing tonight, and also helping to keep us on schedule.
Yes.
So again, we want to thank you. We thank you, Mayor, and we thank everybody for coming tonight. So please enjoy your way home. Mayor, do you have any final comments?
Get home.
Do you have any final comments for tonight?